Hello, friends. Welcome back. Sharon Brubaker here, KHTS, your hometown station. You are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour with Sharon Brubaker. I have an amazing co-host with me today, Sandy Atmore. We've been joining each other a lot on this show, which I love. If you're listening to this program, there's a huge probability that your heart may be broken. It could be from a death, either recent or long ago, or it could be from one of the 40 or more known losses that we know can cause a grieving experience in your heart. Regardless of the cause of your broken heart, you know how you feel, and it probably isn't good. Sandy and I are not going to tell you how you feel because you already know. At best, we can tell you we know what it felt like when our broken heart occurred. And today, we are talking about one of those losses. Hi, Sandy.
Hi there. It's so great to be here today.
We get to talk our favorite subject for an hour.
Oh my gosh. I could be here all day with you.
I
So
know.
this is so much fun for me.
And our favorite subject is grief.
It is.
And we're spreading the word
Yeah.
that we need to change the way we grieve.
Yes.
But something's been happening in the world. And so you and I decided that we're going to dedicate the whole month to this subject because we know that so many of our friends are being triggered by what's going on.
Absolutely.
And we call this #MeToo. One of the 40 known losses that we know a person can experience is, and I don't want to put it on one thing, but it's sexual abuse.
Yes.
Child molestation. There's so many different forms of it that it falls under, so many different tags. Rape. All of these things, and I'm just going to call it out for what it is. There are so many times that you and I get clients that this comes up
Absolutely.
in their past.
Yes.
They may come to see us for one thing,
Yes, absolutely.
and they don't realize that this is a loss that can cause a grieving experience in their heart. You and I have both experienced it at different times in our life, and we share that. You can go first, or I can go first. Share your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I did want to say about that too is I think a lot of times people don't even realize what sexual abuse is.
Yes.
You know, like you're saying, they might understand rape or a child being touched inappropriately, but you know, even somebody watching pornography with a child or giving sexual innuendo to a
Yes.
child or an adult where it's unwanted, all of that falls under sexual abuse. So a lot of times when people come and come with you and I, they don't even realize that that's what they've experienced. So they don't always know how to define the loss.
And we want to be clear right from the beginning. This happens to men and to women.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of times that men
Yep.
experience this and they are so embarrassed to share it.
Yes.
Or what you and I have shared in the past is that it seemed normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a young girl, it seemed normal. It
It
seemed like a
did.
part of life. So
Yeah.
I didn't share the story
Yeah.
right away until years later. So I just accepted it as part of my life.
It's so true. I mean, for me, you know, I grew up in a very abusive home. So there was a lot of different types of abuse. I mean, there was emotional abuse, physical abuse. There was sexual abuse, and many different men. So I had older cousins, I had uncles, grandfather, and my father. And I was molested, I was raped. And in my home, when bad things happened, everybody acted like they weren't happening. And so denial was the other ingredient. And so there were some of the abuse that I actually just pushed out of my head, and some of it I rationalized. Like you said, I normalized it, or I thought it was my fault. And so therefore it didn't dawn on me that I had been abused until much later. But I really had a lot of signs. I find some people go out, some people go in. I turned to alcohol and drugs and promiscuity, and you know, I had a lot of outward behaviors that would suggest that something was wrong. Sometimes people go the other way. Sometimes they become very rigid and they have lots of walls and they don't connect with anybody, and they almost seem like really, really good. And I think both can be a response, but for me it was definitely a lot, I believe, self-destructive behaviors. Yeah.
For me, I didn't notice it until I saw something on television many years later. And then it just brought back all these memories of different situations in my life. Well, not only for me, but also witnessing people in my family being abused, sexually abused. But the one thing that and that's where I just thought it was normal. It was just a part of life. Okay, this happened to me and I just move on. But the one thing that's been happening to me over the last couple of weeks, especially because everyone is talking about it now,
Yeah.
is that I'm going back, and even though I've grieved it, I'm going back and thinking about each little situation and like, did I grieve that all the way? Did I look at
Yeah.
that? It's like making me go back and take a look at it, and I feel okay. I feel completely recovered from it, but it's just taking me back there. I can't even imagine the triggers that are coming up for men and women that have not grieved it.
Oh, yes. With there being so much exposure in the media and so much controversy,
Right.
actually over the topic, it brings up a lot in people's hearts. And a lot of times they're kind of taken aback or taken by surprise, and they don't always know how to deal with it. Or a lot of times I hear people say to me, I didn't realize this affected me so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had someone recently that really thought she had worked through it. She'd been in therapy for years. We're doing some grief work right now. And she literally just said, I don't think I'm recovered from this.
Yes.
It's just between what's going on in the news and us sitting down doing some work. We have a very special treat today.
We do.
You brought us a very special guest.
I did.
And I would like for you to introduce her, and let's hear Nicole's story.
Absolutely. So, our guest today, our special guest, her name is Nicole Gilhus, and she's really an amazing woman. And she has an incredible story, and she's, still in process in her story, but she's done some just incredible and courageous things. And so I'm really excited, Nicole, that you can be here with us. So, Nicole, do you want to share just a little snippet of you, where you are today, and then just give us some of your story?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm happy to be able to shed more light into this issue, especially as someone who's still very much in the midst of this, as you're saying, still being triggered. And one of my triggers was actually the Stanford swimmer case. That was one of the first big ones for me that really brought back how painful this was. I am currently a PhD student at UCLA. I am a mother and a wife. And, I'm part of my local church, and I have a really wonderful home life here. But my childhood was very different. I grew up in a very spiritually, physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive environment that wasn't in my immediate house, but in my grandparents' home, where I was taken every day. I was molested, sexually abused, and raped. I was also involved in child pornography and child endangerment from a very young age. And the way, Sandy talked about people who go out or who go in, I definitely went the inward direction. I grew up, as I said, in a very religiously oppressive home, too. And so I grew up believing that being obedient, being good, was the only way that I could overcome the evil that I was a part of and how horrible I felt about myself. So I followed every rule they set to a T, and yet behind closed doors I was being triggered constantly by my failures or by what I perceived to be my shortcomings and what was happening to me.
Wow. Your story is so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that and being brave to share
I
it. This is
know.
what we need. We need woman power to get out here and really talk about it, right?
That's
Absolutely.
right. Yeah.
And Nicole, would you want to share a little bit too? Because I feel like what's so powerful also about your story is you didn't always live with the knowledge of everything that you have now. So
No, yeah.
do you want to share, because I feel like for me, I can share and I can say, well, my signs were I chose an abusive man who tried to kill me. I was on drugs. There were a lot, like the writing was really on the wall. What was it for you? What were some of the signs for you, since you were kind of the other way?
Right. I guess it's still part of my story that as soon as I don't think about it, I had night terrors and still suffer with night terrors since I was a young child. And it became so normalized and part of the denial system that they would joke about it. But I would wake up screaming in terror, running for help, having just, for a night. I got to the point where I couldn't sleep well. And I didn't know what to do. And one of my roommates, I was traveling for a conference, and she was terrified and thought I was literally being raped in the next room because they're so violent. And she told me how terrifying I was and said, something's wrong with you. And I ended up calling the hospital, and they were immediately, I need to come in. And that was what started my journey of healing, was trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe something is wrong. Maybe I need to get a handle on this.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. The night terrors. Nicole, question to you. Have
Yeah.
any triggers been coming up over the last few weeks in all of this conversation that's going on?
Well, for me, I mean, the triggers for the Me Too campaign have been going on for the past couple of years. I said for me, the Stanford swimmer was the first big one. And at the same time, I've also charged my abuser in Canada, where I'm from. And so I'm actually watching a whole different stream of events happening as other people are now stepping forward to say Me Too. And the number of chargees are growing. So my experience with what's happening right now is actually more related to my own case in Canada.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Nicole, I think one of the things that is really important for people to understand is, I love what you shared about you're having these night terrors and, this person is in the other room like, oh my gosh, I feel like you were being raped in the other room and something is wrong. And I think it's really easy, in our society when these kind of symptoms are presenting themselves and we don't know why, to just go, something's wrong with me. And
Right.
I think what we really need to ask is, what happened? Why is this presenting itself? Did you ever feel like something's wrong with me as opposed to what happened to me? Or do you feel like you were able to see, okay, there's more to the story?
No, I completely internalized it as being my own fault, my own shortcomings. As a Christian, I thought I was never going to go to heaven. I always had memories of some of the sexual behaviors, but I had very much focused on anything that I had been more of a willing participant in. And so I just grew up feeling that I was just sexually perverse and messed up, and that was my own problem, and it was my shame to carry. So when people pointed out my embarrassing nature of having night terrors, I just thought, well, it's just me. I don't know why I'm the only one that suffers with this.
Wow.
Can I ask you a question? Was there a time, Nicole, where you shared your story and you were not believed?
As a child, I didn't speak up about those things. I remember I also heard voices a lot accompanying with the night terrors, and I had asked my mom once about it, and she didn't even respond. And that was kind of a common theme. When I got to college, I really started thinking, well, there's something wrong with me if I've heard voices, and I can still hear voices. And when I asked about it, they didn't even respond, so it was me having to then convince myself that I was okay enough to get through and stop talking about it. And I was, I was sexually assaulted in college as well. And when I did bring that and told people of the couple of times that happened, the response was usually, well, what were you wearing? Where were you? And so it was never, nothing was ever done. It was actually sometimes like people would laugh at me about it. So I just never felt that it was going to go anywhere.
And coming from a grief recovery specialist,
Yeah.
Grief recovery point of view, whether someone believes you or not doesn't matter to us when we're doing the work. It doesn't matter whether you come in, and I absolutely believe. I just wanted to ask that question because that's so much what they're talking about. Well, I was never believed. I talked about it. No one believed me. No one heard me. Other people are being told that it didn't happen, that you made that up. But from a grief recovery point of view, it doesn't matter to us because what matters to us is what's in your heart and what's broken. And that's the part that we go over, correct?
Absolutely. And I actually think not being believed is part of the loss.
Yes. It's a whole separate part that we can grieve.
Yes, because I think, Nicole, what you're bringing up is to then be in college after growing up the way that you grew up and having the experiences that you had and having some of the symptoms that were either normalized or dismissed or not looked at. You already had the message that it was your fault. And so then to enter into a college experience and to be sexually assaulted and for the response that you get to be, well, what were you wearing?
Yeah.
What did you do to bring that on? It's just, it's like heaping more wounds onto something that's already wounded.
And I guess,
go
ahead, Nicole.
Well, I was going to say, in my family, denial and minimizing were very key ingredients into the environment. So as I said, if I'd bring up something that to me was very traumatic, the response would be laughter or dismissive or nothing or just blank silence until I could eventually move on. And the irony of when I actually did come forward and tell my family about the sexual abuse in my family, they did believe me because I wasn't the only victim to have said this before. They just never took precautions to make sure that I was okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So they did believe because of that. The culture was so thick, they just didn't want to deal with it.
And when we're doing the work in the grief recovery and the person, male or female, comes to us with the broken heart, there's a lot of times that it's not just the abuse. It's also what I was just sharing here, that it's not a matter of whether you were believed or not. That's a part that we may need to grieve. But it's also the adults that didn't come to save you,
Yes.
that didn't come to rescue you, that didn't turn the situation around. That's a whole separate portion. And what I love about this is that, and I'm sure Nicole's getting to the bottom of it while she's doing her work, is all of those different layers.
Yes, yes. And Nicole, I feel like that's a really big part of it, don't you think, is understanding family dynamics and realizing and even grieving a lot of the relationships of the family, even if they weren't necessarily abusers.
Yeah, I think in my family, feeling like everyone has a hand in it because, as you said, I'm a child to someone else. It wasn't my parent who was my abuser, but when my parent knows enough and then still brings me over there's such a sense of loss, of protection, and even of self-worth to think that you could be sacrificed for somebody else. That came into play for me and is a constantly unraveling piece, especially as I said, I'm charging in Canada and I get to watch all the family unfold with their own emotions about it as they feel uncomfortable. And not that they don't believe me, but they don't like that it's becoming public.
Wow. Yeah. That's a whole other thing. And I love that we're talking about this because I do feel that, grief is cumulative.
Yes.
And I find with sexual abuse of any kind, child, adult, all the layers in between, there are typically, there's the event, but there's typically all these other relationships that are involved. It's, I wasn't protected. My family didn't see. I wasn't believed, or my environment wasn't safe enough for me to even bring it. In other words, I knew if I said something, I wouldn't be believed anyway. And so there's a lot of times in the grieving process, there's a lot of different layers to grieving and a lot of situations to grieve. And it's, I think, important to understand all that gets lost.
And I think what happens is that people don't realize that there are all the different layers.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that, and that's what we're really trying to get out there, is that there is help for this brokenness that is in your heart, that you've carried on all this time. And Nicole is the perfect example, aside from you and I, that she was able to, and is still able to, go deep into her heart and look at these areas and these layers and really pull them out through this grief process, which is totally cool. Nicole, do you have a second? Can you hang on with us a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back here, I would love to talk about the change that's happened with you since you've done the grief recovery, since you've gone in and looking at that, and how the recovery feels for you. That's why I really like to dig a little deeper in that in the next segment. So friends, if you could just join us right back here after the break, we're going to come back and continue our conversation with Nicole.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
If you're tired of your nail polish chipping a day or two after an expensive manicure, then you'll love the gel nail polish manicure now offered by Anne. Anne is a licensed manicurist serving the Santa Clarita Valley in Canyon Country for over 15 years. And now she's offering the gel manicure that lasts without chipping for up to 2 weeks. Log on to hometownstation.com for details on how to get an amazing deal on gel nails by Anne on Restaurant Row, or call Anne at 250-8340.
Who says fun is just for weekends? Come live it every day at Skyline, a new kind of master planned community with indoor and outdoor lifestyle amenities perched in the beautiful hills of Santa Clarita, with nearly 1,600 acres of open space, also known as your new backyard. Prices start in the mid-500s. Come for our grand opening event November 3rd with live performances, food trucks, craft beer, and model tours. RSVP at life@skyline.com. Join us November 3rd and get a taste of life wide open.
Questions about your water bill? SCV Water is available to answer your questions and help you understand your water bill. They can provide the tips and tools you need to use water more efficiently. Visit yourscvwater.com to manage your account and to pay your bill. Their customer service representatives look forward to helping you. That's yourscvwater.com.
MB2 Raceway, fast, high-performance kart racing at LA County's only indoor electric kart racing facility, and you're the superstar driver. Motocross legend and DEI driver Ricky Carmichael and Team Andretti Green's Brian Herta race in MB2 when they're not fighting it out for world championships, and so can you. MB2 Raceway, located between San Fernando and Santa Clarita Valleys, where the 5, the 210, and the 14 freeways meet in Sylmar. It's MB2 Raceway. Dial 1-866-986-RACE. That's 1-866-986-RACE. MB2 Raceway, where racers race.
Your hometown station.
KHTS AM 1220 and the new 98.1 FM.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us back after the break. You are right here at KHTS, your hometown station. I'm Sharon Brubaker with my co-host Sandy Atmore, and you are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour. And we are talking about an amazing subject today, and that is #MeToo. I don't know what else to call it, so that's what I'm going to call it.
I love it.
Because it covers all of those.
It does.
And you brought us an amazing guest today, Sandy, and her name is Nicole. Nicole was telling us all about her past and just her history and how she got to using grief recovery. And just really quick, I want to let everyone know, all of our friends know, that there are 40 or more known losses that we know can cause a grieving experience in your heart. And sexual abuse and child molestation and rape and all of those definitely fall under that umbrella, and that's the subject we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just prior to the break, Nicole was giving us her history, but she also, I wanted to delve in a little bit deeper. One, you were going to tell us about how powerful this is making you, but two, just how the change has been in your life with doing the grief work, Nicole.
Yeah, so, we were talking before the break about kind of that loss and that sense of loss of finding out then that, different people that could have protected us that didn't, or different family members that may not be so okay with us coming forward or speaking what happened to us. But one thing that I have been experiencing with grief recovery is how empowering and rewarding it can be for you to be there for yourself and for you to speak up and for you to finally voice what happened to you. And I think we often overlook how much this is also an experience with ourselves. And so for me, being able to say what happened to me, for one, dropped my night terrors drastically. I was going from 4 a night. For the next 6 months, I had 2 a month, which was just changed my life in so many ways. But also being able to know that I was going to be there for myself, that as I'm a mother, that I could be there for my kids in a way that my family wasn't, and to change that legacy starting from me. And that empowered me in a way I just didn't anticipate.
I love that you say that, Nicole, and that's absolutely true. And, I wanted to ask you a little bit too. Did you realize initially that you needed to grieve, or do you feel like you kind of discovered that in the process of grief recovery?
Well, that's a joke between you and I, because I used to encourage a lot of my friends to go, and I actually said to one of my close friends, I wish I had something to grieve, but I'm fine. And we kind of had this joke, because I was so able, and one of my friends said, you just had it all so annoyingly smashed down. And so I did not know. It was purely, there was things in my past that I didn't like talking about. There was really uncomfortable memories that I had that I just learned to really shut down. But I came at it because I figured my husband he was really struggling with the night terrors, and I wanted to get help for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And you didn't think you needed to grieve. That's really, that brings up another subject, and I'm just going to throw this in real quick. It's sometimes people don't realize it's grief.
Right.
They don't realize it's grief.
Right.
And that's what the wall we're running up against. And Nicole's the poster child for that.
Yeah.
But it's grief, my friends. It's grief. It's not just death. And that's what we're trying to get out.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a really great point too, Nicole, is that, one of the things, like night terrors is a great example. In Nicole's case, there were night terrors, and it's, maybe easy to think of a night terror being because of, maybe an intellectual dynamic or even a spiritual dynamic. But I think, we have to remember that when we've had these big emotional responses, right? Anytime we go through a loss of any kind, we have this emotional response. But what doesn't come out stays in.
Yes.
And that's where we end up carrying a lot of unresolved grief. And when that piles up, especially with these real big experiences,
right,
it can present itself in multitudes of different ways. And so when you come to that understanding and realize, wow, I have lost so much, and yet there are tools that will help me to grieve what I have lost, it actually also, I believe, makes other things work better, like therapy and other things like that,
I was just recently with a lady who's just done a ton of therapy, and I'm not knocking therapy in any way, but she kept asking for tools. She kept saying, well, what can I do? What can I do? And they kept telling her, well, come back next week and we'll talk about it. And she's like, just what can I do? Like, she wanted to reach out and touch something, and that's what this is,
yeah.
and that's what I love about it. Nicole, what was it like for you, because you didn't think you needed grief recovery? And I'll let you know, I went to grief recovery holding my sister up, thinking she needed it, not me. What was it like for you when the light bulb turned on, and you're like, wow, this is for me?
Yeah, for me, though, the humor in that, it was almost immediate. Within the first few minutes of my session, I talked about my grandfather being a pedophile. I talked about the unsafe environment. And the bigger thing was I left feeling so shaky, and I drove home, immediately got in the door and sobbed, and I don't think I stopped crying for the next 4 months. It was like this permission was granted, and the pain that I didn't know was in there just fell out of me. And, I don't know what Sandy thought of that, but it was just like, I didn't even have to say hi, and she basically fell apart. And, and you were talking about the way that it can change your life. I mean, I still have PTSD and tons of triggers, and every time now I bring it to grief recovery, it helps me, instead of being terrified and running away from the trigger and feeling completely incapable of functioning. Like, when you have that trigger where it's like you can't even breathe or think and your body just shuts down, I'm now able to lean into it, discover what's behind that, what am I grieving, and then become empowered over it, instead of a victim to just at any point I can get triggered. And so it's really changed the way I can function in a day.
Wow. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah,
I love
so
this.
good.
I think what happens, Sandy, when you agree, we create a safe place.
Yes.
And when we create that safe place, and a lot of times people like Nicole come into our office thinking, okay, well, I'm here with my brother and you're going to help him, and I'm just here to be strong. But they get in the office and we close the door, and there's something about the tone in our voice, and we just start talking. And we create that safe place, and that's where they're like, it all just starts flowing out. So, Nicole, it doesn't just happen with you. It happens so many times. And it is amazing, because we know we've touched their heart, not their brain. We've absolutely touched their heart, and we give them the place to allow that to flow. So thank you for sharing that as well. Question for you, my dear. I want to know, what is your advice for anyone listening to this show that is not spoken up, don't think they have a problem, or is just afraid to say something? What would you say to that person?
I would say, find a safe person to start with, because we so often tell the wrong people first, I think. I would say that going to a grief recovery, I think I've recruited 1,000 people to Sandy, because every person I meet, I say there's something you can grieve, and there's something that can heal you from the inside. And I wish I had started sooner, because the ability it's given me to thrive more, the ability that I have to be a better wife and mother, it's changed the ability that I have to see myself and to actually love myself. It is never too late, but I would say find a grief recovery specialist and let them love you.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful, Nicole. I love that. And I love what you're saying too about, coming and, realizing that there was pain in your heart and having that permission, because I think a lot of what I find with sexual abuse as it pertains to loss is that it does a lot of things, right? It steals voice. And a lot of people that have been sexually abused have just learned it's my fault and I need to be strong. And, there's all these layers over the top. And so I think what's special about grief recovery is that when you're coming in, you're not coming in to be fixed. You're not coming in to be diagnosed. Yeah. You're coming in to be heard. You're coming in for your heart to be engaged. And the questions with grief recovery is it more goes to the space of like, just tell me what happened. Just let me hear you. Let me meet you right where you are. And I think that environment, we're talking about Me Too today. I think that environment for somebody who has spent their whole life trying to build barricades around a gaping wound, which is often left with sexual abuse, that environment allows them to have what they've never had.
And just from your own experience and what's been going on the last few weeks, I want to know, Nicole, do you think times are changing? Do you think we're going to start to accept it different? I'm just meaning as a society. Yeah. Do you think that we'll be creating the safe place? Do you feel that in your gut?
I feel that there is a change. I feel that something radical is happening and changing. I think we're watching right now the battle over that because there are a lot of people that do not want to see things change and are very uncomfortable with this. I'm sure for a whole host of their own griefs and loss that they have had a hard time mirroring. But I do feel that enough people are coming forward and the atmosphere is that there will be a safe place for people to be able to be heard. Because I love what Sandy said, and for me, it just felt like my entire life, no one ever mirrored back what I was saying, and they would constantly turn it back to me. Well, what do you want me to do with that? What does that mean? As if there were no consequences for actions. And standing in front of somebody who just holds you, it's not about, they can sit with you and they can see you and they can say, wow, I'll sit with you in this. This is painful. Allows you to have that freedom to walk where you are, to go through what you've gone through, and to really stop letting it rule your life. And I think the more people we see that are doing that, the more it creates space. I don't think I was an ally before as much as I, in my heart, wanted to be. I just didn't know how to walk with someone because I couldn't look at myself. And now I am an ally. I am someone that you can talk to, and I have students come talk to me about their own experiences and people coming forward. So the more that we can do that, the more we will create our own lights and become safe spaces for others.
That's beautiful. I have one more question, and I don't even know if you'll be able to answer this. But had you not found Sandy, where do you think you would be right now? What would the difference be without grief recovery?
I think I would still be metaphorically beating my head against a wall. Yeah. I was striving to be perfect and struggling under the weight of that. I would be probably performing okay, and from the outside you would think my smile was genuine, but I wouldn't have that real sense of peace, joy, and love and ability to sit with somebody else in their own grief or to sit with myself. So I'd probably just be an overworker, an overachiever, and someone who's just unsatisfied.
Wow, that brings tears to my eyes, Nicole, because you really are a light. I mean, if you see Nicole in her life, she has both. She's a light. She's very articulate, very well spoken, very much a leader, but very compassionate. Holds space for a lot of people, and an influencer. I feel like you're really an influencer.
I just think the amount of encouragement that you are giving to everyone out there and letting them know you do not have to beat your head up against the wall. You do not have to hide out. We are here telling our stories so that we can be the shoulder for you to jump on. Yeah. We will hold the space for you. Yep. We want you guys to know that we're here. We're here to help you, and we're here to open that door. The door to recovery. The door to all the brokenness in your heart that's hanging on there.
Absolutely. And one other thing I also wanted to say that I think is really important, and I feel like Nicole illustrates that really well. I think in our society, there's, with any loss, we're taught that if you turn and look at it, then you're going to feel bad. And so you shouldn't look at it and just try to make yourself feel better. And it's so interesting to me because the opposite is true.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's really looking at what's there. And obviously you want to be in a process that can help you to do that, you know. But by doing the very thing that is a bit counterculture, which is saying, I'm going to look at this. You know, I'm going to be okay with not being okay with this. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get tools and I'm going to find a way so that I can actually grieve it instead of pretending like it didn't happen or instead of pretending like I'm okay. That's really the path to freedom. And yet we've been sold this lie that if you just avoid and pick yourself up keep busy and keep moving, that's really what you need to do. But I think what Nicole illustrates is just the difference. You know, here she is still in the middle, still discovering more things, still walking through some really, really big life experiences, but she's articulating, but I feel more peace, and I feel more joy, and I feel hopeful.
And piggybacking on that is that you need a guide. You need someone to sit there with you, hold your space, and that has been, I think, from Nicole's story and from my experience, and I'm sure from yours, was the biggest part of, okay, here's the path we're going to walk. And I tell my clients all the time, this is not going to be easy. It is going to be hard. But I'm going to hold your hand, and I'm going to get you through, and we're going to come out on the other side. And on the other side is light. And on the other side is Nicole's strong, beautiful voice that I hear coming through this radio saying, yes, guys, you can do this. Come on, girls. Come on, men. We can do this. There is light on the other side. And that's what's so amazing.
Well, I know for me, I mean, I encourage others to say, you know, as devastating as it can be and how heartbreaking it can be to walk through what's happened to you, I've never felt better. I've never felt more understanding of myself. I've never connected with. It's like that light bulb goes off. Like, oh my gosh, that's why I function this way. That's why I'm stuck. Recovery.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
We're losing you a little bit.
All right, awesome. Let's cut it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Sandy and I are going to leave you with some tips on how to get in touch with us, what you can do if you are in a situation like this. What are some of the things the people you can talk to, and just give you some love and hope and some more space holding when we come back right after the break. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Miles McNamara, Certified Senior Advisor and owner of Comfort Keepers and Home Care. Our caregivers help you in your own home. A Comfort Keeper can provide companionship, meal preparation, medication monitoring, assistance with personal care, transportation to doctor appointments, all enhancing your independence and safety in the comfort and privacy of your own home. So if you or someone you love could use a helping hand at home, call Comfort Keepers at 287-4200. That's 287-4200.
The stress was unbelievable. Debbie Morris is a changed woman. A giant boulder's been lifted. Debbie called Made For You. I'd finished a day of work. Professional, residential, and commercial cleaning. Walk into my house. Made For You. It was an absolute pigsty. Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or even one-time seasonal cleaning. Our mess kept growing. 255-2922. Even when we weren't home. 255-2922. Made For You rescued me.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
Great healthcare just got easier and more convenient in Canyon Country. Facey Canyon Country is now open directly off the Soledad Canyon exit off the 14 freeway. The 37,000 square foot clinic houses Facey Medical Group primary care physicians, pediatricians, and specialists. Facey has easy 24/7 online appointment scheduling for PCPs and peds. For more information or to make an appointment, visit facey.com. That's FACEY.com.
Lark Ranch invites you to be amazed by the magic of Lark on Sunday, October 14th at 1 p.m. The magic of Lark will be packed with live magic entertainment plus great food, fun, games, and dancing. Headlining the event is Michael Gutenplan, a world-renowned master magician, mentalist, and psychic entertainer. Roving magicians will entertain guests with close-up tableside tricks as well, and DJ Beano Bates will spin the tunes. For tickets and more information about Lark Ranch, check out larkfoundation.org.
I've always been driven to serve our country and our community.
Congressman Steve Knight.
I served in the United States Army and spent 18 years as an officer with the Los Angeles Police Department. I ran for Congress because too often I saw people forgotten by Washington. The crisis at the VA exemplified a bureaucracy that was out of touch and hurting real people. As your congressman, I'm committed to making our government in Washington work better for you.
My name is David Brayton. I am an Air Force veteran. 10 years ago, my doctors told me that I had to have a double lung transplant. It was a massive uphill battle to get the VA to do what they said they were going to do in the first place. Finally, Steve Knight got involved, and if it wasn't for Steve Knight's assistance in this thing, I guarantee you I'd be dead. Steve Knight is a veteran, and he's LAPD on top of it. I'm voting for Steve Knight because he gets stuff done for us.
I'm Steve Knight, and I approve this message.
Now FM, 98.1 FM, and AM 1220, your hometown station.
Welcome back, friends. We want to welcome you back to KHTS, your hometown station. You are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour. I am Sharon Brubaker with my co-host, Sandy Atmore, and we want to thank Nicole.
Oh, my goodness.
She was on the line, and we got disconnected. So we don't have the best phone service in this world, but that's okay. We got a lot of great information from her.
Oh, we did.
And I just want to say thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing from
Yes.
your heart, sharing your true life story.
Absolutely. It's so courageous.
And like she said, she feels there's a change coming, and we're fighting through that change
Yes.
right now. And Nicole is part of that change.
She is.
She's totally
is.
part of that change that's happening. I want to talk to you a little bit, Sandy. We can round up the show here before we
Yeah.
give out our information where everyone can reach us.
Yes.
But that first step is the hardest.
It really is. You know, I think one of the things that Nicole said I thought was so great when she said, you know, tell a safe person.
Yeah.
A lot of times we do end up sharing first with somebody who isn't safe.
Yeah.
I shared with my family.
Right.
They weren't safe.
Right.
Because they didn't believe me.
Right.
And belief, and this is really important for anybody who's been sexually abused, child on up, belief is the most important ingredient when you're going to share.
Right.
So it's really important that that first person that you share with be one that can hold space and belief.
Mine came out as anger. When the memory came back, it came out as anger. And then I was told that I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't be so mad, that I need to get over it. It was my own issue, and that it happened many years ago, and I shouldn't be so mad. I clearly, distinctly remember that. But taking that first step is sometimes the hardest. Finding that safe person to talk to, finding that safe place. But sometimes just saying the words,
yes,
the steam is released. Just
Yes.
saying the words to someone. So I guess also what I wanted to say, and I think you will agree with me on this, that the first step will probably be the hardest, but getting it out will be life-changing.
Absolutely. I believe once you take that first step, then the other steps to recovery are possible.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, you know, Sharon, sometimes people don't have a safe person. And they might be listening and saying, you know what, but I don't have somebody that will hold space for me.
Right.
And, you know, I would say, call Sharon.
Call Sandy.
Yeah. Because one of the things that we do really, really well is hold space for people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what grief recovery is all about. It's heart language. It's not head language. And so we spend our days with people holding safe space so that they have an environment that sometimes they've never even had before.
And sometimes people do just call and say, hey, do you think this is a grieving experience?
Yes.
And they just want to run that through us. And setting up that place for them. I answer a lot of questions by email as well. Where can they reach you on email, Sandy?
Yeah, they can reach me on email at sandy, SANDI.atmore, ATMORE @gmail.com. or on my website, griefunchained.com.
And your phone number?
323-698-5570.
And I do free mini sessions, so you can have a mini session with me over the phone. I will talk to you, set up an appointment with you, really get what the program is for you, get that whole idea out. But sometimes they just want to talk, and it's completely confidential. I think that's so important that people need to understand that.
It is.
Our process in working with them is completely confidential.
100%.
We don't call anyone. We won't call any family members. We're not calling the police. We're not going to put a word out. They can come to us completely confidential and have a conversation.
I'm wondering how somebody sets up a free mini session with you.
So they call me at 661-212-0720, or they reach out to me at Sharon at SharonBrubaker.com, and they just set up, request a free mini session. I also have a calendar. They can go online and just book that mini session. And I do it a couple of different ways. I think you do this as well. I'm not sure. I do it online. I'll do a mini session online. I do it over the phone, or we can do it in person. It's really up to them.
Yeah.
So whatever they feel comfortable with, whatever they feel they need to get that out. And like I said, it can just be a question over email, and I can answer that as well. Don't be afraid. And I think there's a lot of people out there having triggers right now, and they don't know what to do with it. And so they're gone into their keeping busy, being strong for others, and avoiding. And we want to let you know that we're here for you. We're here for anything and to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I loved hearing Nicole and hearing her story and her transformation. And, the reason that we're passionate about this, the reason I'm so passionate about grief recovery and really about this Me Too topic is because that was my story.
Yeah.
I was, abused, and I was in my life a long time living in a way that was not helpful. I was never present. I was never there. I didn't feel joy. I didn't know any other way, and I didn't know it was possible. And my life now is so full of joy and so full of purpose. It's kind of interesting. Sharon and I were at a conference recently, and my little dog died while I was there, which was really awful. And, Sharon saw me, and immediately she was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "You don't usually see me like this." And she said, "I don't think I've ever seen you like that."
Yeah.
And it really struck me because I went, "Oh my gosh, I'm happy like almost all the time."
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I could see it on your face for sure.
Yeah.
I'm the exact contrast to your story. I came to grief recovery when my nephew died.
Yeah.
And the sexual abuse came out after that and became a part of it.
Wow.
So you and I are bookends of that story.
Yes.
I didn't come because of the sexual abuse. It came up through what I was working on, and it showed it's reared its ugly head in there. So quite often that is what happens. People come to us for grief recovery from something else, and that will show up.
Do you think it showed up because of the safety, because you felt safe? Do you think that environment helped you to also bring up the sexual abuse?
Yes and no. I didn't bring it up in the first time, but the second time is when the safety really was created for me. So I went through the grief recovery for Austin. I got instant release of the pain.
Yes.
So I did another program, and when I did that second program, I knew how amazing it was to have the pain removed from my heart. So I wanted everything out, and that's when it happened for me.
Interesting. So that first time kind of built trust then for you.
It totally built the trust. It set the tone. It set the layer for where it was supposed to be, and I knew where I was going after that. It was kind of like I put my foot in the water a little bit to test it, see what the temperature was like, and once I knew that it was going to work and that it was amazing, I jumped in. Yeah, and so that's how it kind of went for me. And so don't be afraid if that's what happens to you.
Yes.
If you have to release a little bit at a time, that's okay too. It's whatever you want to do. You're really leading the way in the sense of your recovery. We're just guiding you through.
Yes, and a lot of what happens with loss of any kind, but again, we're really speaking specifically about sexual abuse today, is isolation.
Yes.
It's a very isolating loss.
Yes.
Because there's often a lot of internalized shame and blame. And so it's easy as a griever who's experienced sexual abuse to isolate. And I think the other side of grief recovery that's really profound is safe community. It's that I get to be with at least one other person. Maybe I'm, doing a group, or maybe I'm doing a one-on-one, but I get to be with somebody who's going to hold love for me, hold, safety for me. And when you've been isolated, that is a real gift.
Friends, I just want to let you know that Sandy and I are going to be here for the last 2 Wednesdays of the month. We're going to keep this subject going.
Yes.
We want to be here and reach out to everyone that is suffering a loss due to sexual abuse at this time. We're going to keep this conversation going this month because, like Nicole said, we are in the fight and times are changing.
Yes.
And Sandy and I are definitely wanting to lead the way on that. We are here for you. We are holding your space. Thank you for joining us for this hour right here at KHTS, your hometown station.